beautiful cherry blossom square. It's quite unusual this time of the year. We're very pleased to have Senator Nelson. Let me give a brief welcome remark in Korean for general audience. As usual, this is a small group meeting. 눈이 이렇게 많이 온데도 불구하고 여러분들 오셔서 참석해 주시고 고맙습니다. 오늘 행사는 서울대학교 아시아연구소 포럼 두 번째 날입니다. 제가 여러분들 많이 오시지 않았지만 인사인 것처럼 간단하게 아시아연구소에 대해서 말씀을 드리겠습니다. 여러분들 중에서 아시아연구소에 대해서 아시겠지만, 아시는 분도 계시겠지만, 아시아연구소는 작년 9월에 공식 출범을 했습니다. 이번 연구소는 아시아 연구의 허브를 표방하고 있는데, 그와 동시에 사회학 종합연구센터를 지향하고 있습니다. 오늘 우리는 인류 문명사의 인적, 물적, 문화적, 문명적 여러 가지 요소가 아시아를 중심으로 새로이 꽃피워지고 있는 시절을 맞이하고 있습니다. 그리하여 서양 근현대사 정신적 지주 역할을 했던 사회과학도 시대의 변화 발전에 따라 업그레이드 해야 될 시점에 와 있습니다. 바로 이러한 문제의식과 그 해답을 향한 노력의 중심에 우리 서울대학교 아시아연구소가 있습니다. 아시아는 오랜 역사와 높은 수준의 전통 문화를 가지고 있지만 서양 근대사 관점에서 보면 후진적으로 인식되어 왔습니다. 그러나 이제 우리 대한민국을 위시하여서 아시아 곳곳에서 새로운 인류 문명사를 일구어가고 있는 모습을 우리가 보고 있습니다. 인류사 주류의 성공적 합류와 새로운 문명사 창조의 에너지가 아시아 곳곳에 축적되고 발현되는 시점에 우리는 서 있는 것입니다. 바로 이 시점에 그 성공사와 발전사를 정신적으로 받쳐줄 사회과학이 필요한 것입니다. 물론 우리 연구소가 사회과학에 국한된 연구를 하는 것은 아닙니다. 물론 또 마찬가지로 아시아 주제에 굳이 국한되어 있지도 않습니다. 결국 아시아 시대의 문명사 전반을 연구 대상으로 한 만큼 궁극적으로는 인문학, 자연, 공학, 생명과학 등 여러 분야까지 포함하는 명실상부한 종합적 연구센터를 지향하고 있습니다. 우리 연구소는 작년 9월에 아까 말씀드렸듯이 창립기념 학술회의를 기점으로 국제학술회의였는데 힘찬 출발을 시작하였습니다. 여러 가지 학술 행사를 기획하고 있고 그리고 장단기 연구과제를 수행하고 또한 DB를 구축하고 점차 참여하시는 여러 학생들뿐만 아니라 선생님들, 또 내외의 연구자분들 점점 규모가 커지는 그런 사업 비전을 가지고 시작을 하고 있는데 그중 하나가 오늘 이 행사 서울대 아시아 포럼, 공식적으로 SNU 에이시아 포럼. 아시아 포럼은 국내외 저명학자, 전문가를 초청해서 강연 듣고 그 다음에 주제를 함께 토론하고 함께 연구하는 그런 작은 모임을 시작하고 있습니다. 동시에 부차적으로 이 포럼을 통해 본 연구소 연구 과제를 발굴하고 국내외 관련 연구자들 간 네트워킹을 기대하고 있습니다. 그래서 여러분들이 오늘 발표하신 그 내용을 가지고 연구 프로포설을 내는 그게 같이 연구할 수 있는 주제로 될 수도 있겠습니다. 아시아 포럼 첫 번째 순서는 작년 11월 달에 김진현 장관, 전직 장관께서 오셔가지고 세계 통합포럼 이사장이신데 한국의 시대 아시아가 서양에 대한 지구촌 세지스에 초리가 될 수 있을까라는 주제 발표를 해주시고 다양한 토론도 있었습니다. 그리고 오늘 2차 포럼에는 전 캐나다 상원의원이신 세네터 더글러스 로치를 모시고 비핵화 그리고 아시아의 평화 전반에 대해서 말씀을 듣는 자리를 마련했습니다. 3차 포럼은 내달 4월달에 있고 그리고 앞으로 3회 정도 한 학기에 포럼을 계획하고 있습니다. 그 외에도 크고 작은 소규모 크고 작은 이 행사가 있을 텐데 소규모 워크숍하고 집중 주제에 관한 워크숍 그리고 중대규모의 학술대회, 국내 학술대회, 국제 학술대회를 계획하고 있습니다. 여러분들 기왕에 오늘 이 어려운 발표를 했는데 계속 관심을 갖고 참여하고 그것이 그냥 왔다 가는 것이 아니라 뭔가를 생각을 하고 그리고 그 생각을 글로 써서 같이 연구할 수 있는 그런 방향으로 발전했으면 좋겠습니다. 고맙습니다. President John will preside Senator Roche's session today.
We will begin the second forum of the Senate before we invite Honorable Senator Roche to the podium. I will give you a brief introduction of the Senator, even though it will be up to his wonderful career. Honorable Douglas Roche is an author, parliamentarian, and diplomat who has specialized throughout his 4-year public career in peace and human security issues. He was a senator, as you know, member of the Parliament, Canadian ambassador for Disarmament, and visiting professor at the University of Alberta. He was elected chairman of the United Nations Disarmament Committee at the 43rd General Assembly in 1988. He's an author of 19 books, including his latest memoir, Creative Dissent, and other more than 20 additional books. He holds 8 honorary doctorates from Canadian and American universities and has received numerous awards for his work for peace and nonviolence, including the Gandhi Foundation for World Peace Award in Canada and the United Nations Association's Medal of Honor. He was the founding chairman of the Middle Power Initiative, an international network of 8 non-governmental organizations specializing in nuclear disarmament issues. He retired from the Senate in 2004. So there will be a lecture for about 40 minutes and followed by a Q&A session. So during the lecture, you might want to have some questions. It will cover the issues from the general perspective about nuclear non-proliferation and new perspectives starting from Obama administration. We will cover the issue of North Korea, nuclear power initiative. Okay, let me invite
Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone. I want to begin by thanking the Seoul National University, the directors here, for inviting me to come. You know, I have come a long way from Western Canada. But when I come here, not only the snow, but when I come here at Costco, I feel at home with you because I myself taught for many years at the University of Alberta. And I understand your hopes and fears and your griefs and your concern about the world, because students everywhere are sharing your views. We have a universal bond in our caring to save the world from nuclear destruction. So I thank you also for permitting me to speak to you in English. And I'm happy that there is a copy of my lecture here so that you can follow along or study it at a later time. There is a great deal of material on the subject of nuclear disarmament available, and I encourage you to follow the links on websites and also to get an understanding of the critical importance of this moment. And I am especially conscious that I am speaking in the Republic of Korea, where you have a very special concern, which I will speak of. My lecture opens with a quotation taken from the recent Commission on International Non-Proliferation and Disarmament, sponsored by the governments of Australia and Japan. It is a new report composed of eminent individuals, and there they draw to our attention that 20 years after the end of the Cold War, there are still 23,000 nuclear weapons in existence with a combined destructive capacity equivalent to 150,000 Hiroshima bombs. They talk in this quotation of the weapons of the United States and Russia being held, it's called, on alert. That is to say, they can be fired on 15 minutes notice, which gives the presidents, the authorities of those countries, virtually no time to make rational decisions. And so, with more nuclear weapon states coming, they say the near miracle of no nuclear exchange cannot continue in perpetuity. The people, and I would say especially the politicians of the world, need to wake up. As Kofi Annan said, former Secretary General of the United Nations, we are sleepwalking toward a disaster in the world. Well, we now have President Obama coming into office in the United States, and he is giving us a new reason to hope for the elimination of nuclear weapons, because he is, first of all, committed himself to a nuclear weapons-free world. And he convened, for the first time, a summit of the United Nations Security Council last September for the purpose of discussing the dangerous situation. And he caused there to be a resolution which was adopted unanimously by all the 15 members of the Security Council at the summit level, which called for a nuclear weapons-free world. So with both the United States and Russia, who have the majority progress. You know, we have had calls for the elimination of nuclear weapons from many experts in many quarters in the world. It is no longer a lonely subject. It's coming into the mainstream of international politics. Not least of all, the calls from the eminent Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon, a son of your country. And what I like about Mr. Ban's approach to this subject, he puts it in a large context. So I want to read a few words that he said in his Geneva lecture in 2009. The Secretary General said there can be no development without peace, and no peace without development. Disarmament can provide the means for both. We, the peoples, have the legitimate right to challenge the leaders of the international community by asking these questions. What are you doing to eliminate nuclear weapons? How will you fund your fight against poverty? How will we finance mitigation of and adaptation to climate change and the protection of our environment? Mr. Ban goes on. These are global goods that every government and every individual in the world should strive to achieve together in the spirit of renewed multilateralism. Disarmament can help lead the way to a renewed multilateralism, and that is why I have made it a #1 priority. Well, these are wise words from Ban Ki-moon, and the world is fortunate to have a Secretary General with his clear vision of what constitutes the true human security agenda. So in coming to Mr. Ban's own country, I wish first of all to pay tribute to his excellent leadership and to thank the people of Korea for having given the world such a fine statesman. I wish also to pay my respects to the government of the Republic of Korea, which is playing a crucial role in the stabilization of Northeast Asia. It is, of course, unacceptable for the DPRK to become a permanent nuclear weapons state. This is a very complex situation, as you know. But I believe that a final solution to the DPRK problem would be aided by the proposed Northeast Asian nuclear weapons-free zone. A regional zone and the process of creating it could contribute to the sustainable denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. In such a zone, the DPRK would relinquish its nuclear arsenal and nuclear weapons capabilities and receive in return binding assurances against the use of nuclear weapons, which has long been a concern of the DPRK leadership. By providing Japan and the Republic of Korea binding assurances against the use of nuclear weapons, a zone could also facilitate their lessening or ending reliance on U.S. nuclear weapons for defense. Already we see support for this proposal established last year through the Parliamentary Network for Nuclear Non-Proliferation and Disarmament. And now world attention is focused on the North Korea and Iran situations. Without question, the proliferation of nuclear weapons must be stopped. Even greater dangers for the world lie ahead if more states or terrorists acquire nuclear weapons. But proliferation is inevitable as long as the nuclear weapon states maintain their nuclear weapons, even in reduced numbers, while proscribing their acquisition by any other state. A two-class nuclear world is not sustainable in the 21st century. It is time for middle power states, whom I consider Korea to be an eminent example, to emphasize this point in their discussions with the nuclear powers. President Obama has indeed raised hopes for a nuclear weapons-free world, but he, by himself, cannot sustain those hopes, and already disillusionment is beginning to be felt. In the face of the obstacles being thrown up by those within his own administration, and Obama's growing acceptance of the need to compromise in order to get anything done on the polarizing, life-changing issues, for example, climate change and health insurance, can we expect that he will stay the course on the abolition of nuclear weapons? Or will he take the view that some steps, for example, a test ban and more reductions, is all he can get, and he should not polarize society even more by demanding that which the political systems are presently incapable of achieving? Will he, in short, settle for the elimination of nuclear weapons as a good idea that we must work to achieve eventually, while maintaining the doctrine of nuclear deterrence in the meantime? It appears to me that the retention of eventual as the slogan for nuclear weapons abolition may become irresistible and inevitable unless there is resistance from key states abetted by an informed public opinion. The world is falling into a trap. For in retaining eventual, nuclear defenders will so solidify the justification for nuclear weapons that proliferation is bound to occur, and the more proliferation in the years and decades ahead, the harder it will be to even claim that nuclear disarmament has legitimacy. The world, it seems, has stopped loving the bomb. That much progress has been made. But the long love affair cannot yet be ended. We cannot yet summon up the will to start work now to completely ban nuclear weapons. And the longer this situation persists, the more ingrained they will become into world systems. The time to break this vicious cycle is now, while Obama is still in office. At least he wants to move to a post-nuclear weapons world. A position it would be foolhardy to think his successor will also hold. If the community of nations does not reject the pernicious doctrine that nuclear weapons are necessary for security now, while both the United States and Russia have leaders who want to break from the stranglehold of the past, not only will an opportunity have been missed, but the world will be plunged into even deeper danger. I have spent at least 4 decades of my public life on these issues as a parliamentarian and a diplomat and a leader in civil society, particularly as chairman of the Bill Powers Initiative. And so in this long span of time, I've learned certain things. And I now want to say 2 of the great things that I have learned in respect of the nuclear disarmament agenda. First, any nation that possesses a nuclear weapon will spur others to want one also. The greater the number of nuclear weapon states, the greater the risk that the weapons will be used. And any use of a nuclear weapon would be a calamity leading to worldwide suffering. Second, steps in the name of nuclear disarmament, such as reductions or a ban on testing, by themselves will not be effective as long as non-nuclear states are convinced that such steps are but a cover for modernizing arsenals. Lower numbers of weapons, which become more effective through modernization, sometimes euphemistically referred to as refurbishing. Now we get into a debate about the niceties of the English language, whether they're refurbishing or modernizing. They are bringing weapons up to date, put it that way. All of that is not nuclear disarmament. When the partial test ban treaty was achieved in 1963, it did not stop nuclear testing. It simply changed the venue testing from the atmosphere to underground. Similarly, a comprehensive test ban, now laboriously working its way through the diplomatic processes, will only stop explosive testing. Testing for future nuclear weapons will go on in the laboratories, where funding has just been increased. So there must, in short, be a visible intent to link the steps to the goal of a nuclear weapons-free world. The idea that it will be satisfactory just to have fewer nuclear weapons held by nations that claim to be stable must be discarded. It was not sufficient just to have a little slavery or to improve somewhat the conditions of life for slaves. Apartheid for only a few blacks was not acceptable. Colonial domination by outside rulers, even if they were friendly, could not be tolerated. Slavery, apartheid, and colonialism were social evils that had to be completely eliminated. So too, nuclear weapons are a social evil. In fact, they are the ultimate evil, as they were called by the President of the International Court of Justice. They must be banned by the international community because failure to do so threatens the very existence of life on the planet. The nuclear doctrinists throw all sorts of false arguments. Nuclear weapons cannot be disinvented. We cannot stop cheaters. Nuclear disarmament will pave the way to conventional wars. All these arguments have been rejected by numerous commissions. No one is talking about unilateral nuclear disarmament. Nor can can mutual disarmament be done overnight? What is required is an irreversible commitment by all states to achieve a world free from nuclear weapons. Were the nuclear weapon states to make such a commitment, they would not only save the Non-Proliferation Treaty from further erosion, but also gain the moral authority to call on the rest of the world to curb the proliferation of these inhumane weapons. Now, how should such a commitment be evidenced? The answer lies in starting specific work now on a nuclear weapons convention. This would be a global treaty banning the production as well as deployment of nuclear weapons. A global treaty exists banning chemical weapons. A similar treaty prohibits biological weapons. Why should there not be a global ban on nuclear weapons? A model nuclear weapons convention written by the leaders of the nuclear disarmament movement has been circulating as the United Nations document for several years. Last October, in his Geneva lecture, Ban Ki-moon repeated his call for work to begin. I now want to quote exactly the words of the Secretary General, who has, as I said earlier, given a priority to this subject. He's serious. He wants it to move. Here's what he says. Any commitment to eliminate the world's deadliest weapon can only be achieved with the most binding of all legal obligations. This could take the form of a multilateral nuclear weapons convention. It could emerge as a framework of separate, mutually reinforcing instruments. Whatever the form it may be, the commitment must have the force of law. And I can tell you, I had come to South Korea to take part in the SHAPE conference on Friday, and also have the honor to come and speak to you today. I have come to support the Secretary General of the United Nations. And I call upon everyone to do that which is possible. Letters, communications, whatever, to support what Ban Ki-moon is saying to the world. His words must be heard. The model convention would prohibit development, testing, production, stockpiling, transfer, use, and threat of use of nuclear weapons. States possessing nuclear weapons would be required to destroy their arsenals according to a series of phases. The model contains detailed provisions for national implementation and verification, establishes an international agency responsible for enforcement and dispute settlement, and indicates procedures for reporting and addressing violations. Governments are, of course, the principal actors, but civil society would play an important role. And thus, the experience of many international and intergovernmental bodies will be useful, along with the scientific, medical, legal, policy, and other expertise of NGOs, making them key partners in the process. Every year since 1997, the General Assembly has adopted a resolution calling upon all states immediately to commence multilateral negotiations, leading to an early conclusion of a nuclear weapons convention. In 2009, the resolution was adopted, by a vote of 124 to 31, 124 in favor, 31 opposed, and 21 abstentions. So far, China has been the only major nuclear power to vote for it. While it is difficult, if not impossible, to start practical work on nuclear weapons convention with the opposition and abstentions still so high in the UN system, important support is growing. At the summit of the Security Council I spoke about a moment ago, several heads of state expressed support for a convention. While noting that for the time being the NPT remains the core of the regime, President Fischer of Austria said, Austria supports the idea of a nuclear weapons convention equipped with a sophisticated verification mechanism. Hu Jintao, President of China, stated the international community should develop at an appropriate time a viable long-term plan composed of phased actions, including the conclusion of a convention on the complete prohibition of nuclear weapons. India has also raised its voice, most recently last September, when Prime Minister Singh reiterated India's proposal for negotiation of a nuclear weapons convention. Moreover, the International Commission on Nuclear Non-Proliferation and Disarmament, whose words I quoted at the beginning of this lecture, stated, it is not too early to start now on further refining and developing the concepts of the model nuclear weapons convention. The key to a nuclear weapons-free world is to start the preparations now, while political conditions are right, to identify the requisite legal, political, and technical elements, while simultaneously undertaking parallel steps on limited measures, such as taking nuclear weapons off alert status, entry into force of the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, the negotiation of a fissile material cutoff treaty, and such other measures that verify reductions on current nuclear stockpiles. Active movement toward a convention will act as a roadmap to guide and accelerate the current disarmament process. Without the start of such active work, nuclear weapon states will continue to cling to the doctrine of nuclear deterrence, which has led to an unsustainable two-class world of nuclear haves and have-nots. International polls show that people around the world overwhelmingly support the proposition that all countries should sign a treaty that prohibits all nuclear weapons. But they're passive, if not skeptical, in expressing this view. The sheer horror of nuclear weapons and the catastrophic economic, environmental, and human costs of their use have not yet penetrated the public consciousness. While it's hard to find anyone who actually thinks using nuclear weapons is a good idea, the subject seems remote from daily concern. Nuclear disarmament campaigners are frequently relegated to the sidelines of society's concerns. What we need is a single focused idea to get rid of all nuclear weapons in a safe and secure way. That's the beauty of the Nuclear Weapons Convention. It provides a legal basis for phasing in concrete steps with a visible intent to reach zero nuclear weapons in a defined time period. The public can easily understand this clear notion. The Middle Powers Initiative, which I represent here, is an association of 8 prominent international bodies that work with middle powers on nuclear disarmament issues. The Middle Powers Initiative has examined this and states as our policy, middle power countries should press for the Non-Proliferation Treaty Review Conference to adopt a commitment to commencement of preparatory work, deliberations, and negotiations on a convention or framework of instruments for sustainable, verifiable, and enforceable global elimination of nuclear weapons. So I'm trying to give that message to the government of Korea. Key countries can perform a great service to the nuclear disarmament agenda by ensuring that the final document of the forthcoming NPT review conference in May contains a passage calling for active work to begin. This work could then take the form of international consultations involving a core group of like-minded states and representatives of civil society to thoroughly explore the focus, scope, verification, and other elements relevant to a nuclear weapons convention. An international contact group not blocked by rigid consensus rules, as obtained in the Conference on Disarmament, would be an important step forward. Finally, societal attitudes are indeed changing, even though moving to a nuclear weapons-free world represents a tectonic shift in how the world operates. The very powerful are being asked to give up that which makes them very powerful. And this has never been done before in the history of the world. Nonetheless, historical momentum toward the abolition of nuclear weapons is building up. Opposition by nuclear diehards is still strong, but the public will of the vast majority of the world must prevail. We must constantly appeal to the conscience of humanity to take steps to ban those weapons that would destroy all life on the planet. There is a global conscience, and we must, through art, films, books, the internet, and all forms of modern communication, reflect, inspire, deepen, and utilize feelings within all civilizations that the threat of mass killings cannot be tolerated. The abolition of nuclear weapons is no longer just a lofty goal, a noble aspiration, an idealistic thought. It has become the irreducible essential for survival. It is the paramount human rights issue of our time. Peace is impossible as long as the threat of nuclear war hangs over our heads. A nuclear weapons convention prohibiting the production as well as the use of all nuclear weapons in all circumstances is urgently needed. It will be constructed once the government's long love affair with the bomb finally ends. Thank you for listening to me, and I'm happy to respond to your questions, comments that you would like to make, because I would like to learn from you just as I hope you are learning from me.
질문 있으신 분?
Thank you for the wonderful lecture. Why don't you give us an evaluation of South Korea's efforts in pursuing that non-armament or disarmament? South Korea government's
South Korea's
efforts so far, especially from the perspective of middle power initiative. So Japan is part of it, and some other so-called middle powers cooperate with MPI, but not South Korea. So you have some positive perspective.
Yes. The South Korea, the Republic of Korea, member of the work of the Middle Powers Initiative. The Middle Powers Initiative started in 1998 to bring together representatives of middle power countries. What is a middle power country? A middle power country is not the P5, the permanent members of the Security Council, and it's not that 100, 120 very small countries that do not have very much influence. They are the countries of NATO, Japan, Australia, Canada, and Republic of Korea. There's about 30 of them. So we gathered them together in a series of meetings, and we accelerated our work after the 2005 review conference of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. It's reviewed every 5 years. This is the 40th anniversary right now, this week. And the next review is coming up in May in New York. It takes a month to review it. So the Middle Powers Initiative has sent delegations and held meetings and consultations. And we, as I said, accelerated this work after the 2005 review conference, which was so bad under the Bush administration, where nothing could be done at the 2005 review. And then people say that the NPT is losing its effectiveness. Well, it wasn't very effective at that conference because of the attitude of certain states. So afterwards, we formed the Article 6 Forum. Article 6 is that article in the Non-Proliferation Treaty that requires states to negotiate in good faith the elimination of the nuclear weapons. They have not yet done this. So we said, let us focus our work on this. And we held a number of meetings, and in 2007 produced a report towards 2010, which is coming up here now, priorities for NPT consensus. And in that work, the representatives of the Republic of Korea were outstanding. And your ambassadors, the officials that we dealt with, particularly Ambassador Choi Young-jin, who was then the permanent representative of the Republic of Korea to the UN and chairman of the General Assembly's First Committee. And I worked very closely with Ambassador Choi because I too, in my career, was chairman of the First Committee, so we had something in common. And he helped us a great deal in establishing our meetings at the United Nations. So, later on, then, when Ban Ki-moon became the Secretary General, we went to see him. I even have a picture here of myself with Ban Ki-moon. He sent me, he says, autograph it for me. I have a frame, so I thought it's out of the frame so people could see it here in South Korea. To enable me to pay my respects to him and to the government of South Korea. So now I'm here for this meeting of the Sheikh, but I'm also going to be meeting with the government you will recognize that under the protocols of diplomacy, I am not permitted to say publicly what I'm going to say to the government of Korea. And I'm not permitted to say what they say to me. But I think you can tell from my lecture what's on my mind. and the general views that I will be expressing this afternoon to your government. The government of the Republic of Korea plays an extremely important role in our subject here today. Because the denuclearization of not only the peninsula but Northeast Asia is imperative for regional and global peace. And in this time, all these years, the government of South Korea has had a very, very close, entangling relationship with the United States. And Korea benefits from the extended deterrence offered by the United States. Does that mean that nothing can be done to move our agenda forward? Well, now that the government of the United States is headed by Barack Obama, a man who wants to move forward, he wants to move to a newly weapons-free world, I invite you to read President Obama's speech given in Prague, April 2009, in which he spells out not only his vision, but the route that he's going to take to it. And I've already said, we had the summit of the Security Council of the United Nations. He's calling a summit on nuclear dangers in April. We have negotiations going with Russia now. And he wants to move to comprehensive negotiations. And so he needs support from important countries. Again, I say, I consider being in South Korea at this moment, doing what I'm doing here, to be of help to the agenda that President Obama has brought into sharp focus in the world. I am not suggesting this is going to be easy. I'm not suggesting that North Korea, DPRK, is suddenly going to become easy to deal with. I think that as we move forward, we can find ways to reduce the dangers that the whole world is facing. And in that respect, the Republic of Korea has a role to play.
We are under threat, real nuclear threat from North Korea. How do you prospect nuclear? They actually think of nuclear weapons as resource apart, and while other parts of the world they consider free use nuclear is really important.
Well, thank you. I first pay my respects to the officials of the six-party talks. I think that they are making a valiant effort